want you all as close to me as possible. Good. Mazel tov.
6,000 miles from Israel's settlements, in the heart of Manhattan, defiance of international law comes dressed in diamonds. Here, Shani and Dov Heikind, two of God's Jewish American warriors, are a whirlwind of schmooze.
Good to see you, Mike. Thanks for being here.
She is the daughter of a prominent rabbi.
Mazel tov.
He is a New York State representative. A power couple. They met in the 1970s working for Meir Kahane, the notorious Brooklyn rabbi whose motto was for every Jew, a 22. The Heikinds have gone from being Kahane's street fighters to these fancy feeding grounds. Here, they carefully cultivate American Jewish support.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
For a controversial mission. Jewish settlement of the occupied territories and East Jerusalem.
The people who went to some of these areas really believe in something. Most of us just believe in making another buck. I don't know why anyone would object to it.
They object, his critics do, because Jewish settlements violate international law. That's according to a 2004 opinion from the International Court of Justice.
My government believes that international law sets the appropriate standards.
From the earliest days of the settler movement, even the United States, Israel's closest ally, blasted Israel's settlement policy.
Substantial resettlement of the Israeli civilian population in occupied territories, including in East Jerusalem, is illegal.
Ever since, American presidents, both Democrat and Republican, have spoken from virtually the same script. They consistently oppose settlement growth.
The United States will not support the use of any additional land for the purpose of settlements.
The United States policy was that there should be no more settlements.
I know that our nation has differences with the nation of Israel over settlements.
Israel must remove unauthorized outposts and stop settlement expansion.
Hi, Dov.
But with a smile and a song, they ignore their government's policy. The Heikinds are Orthodox Jews who believe God's promise to the Jewish people includes the occupied territories.
The only answer to Arab terror is to give me more neighbors.
And they aren't the only ones. Federal tax records show at least 35 American charities dedicated to supporting the settlements. According to these records from 2003 and 2004, these organizations spent more than $67 million, all perfectly legal. And since the money goes to support charitable projects like parks and education centers, the contributions are even tax deductible.
This man's building Jerusalem every day. With every breath, Mel Wadler is involved in keeping Jerusalem united with Jewish life. It's his heart and soul.
Israel will never have peace as long as they are confiscating and colonizing Palestinian land.
I spoke with former President Jimmy Carter, who has written a controversial book that's critical of Israel and its settlement policy. You have said that settlements are a real obstacle to peace.
There's no doubt in any rational analyst's mind that the settlements are the major obstacle to peace.
But on the other hand, many people say actually it's Palestinian suicide bombers that are the major obstacle to peace.
Well, there's no doubt that any sort of attack by Palestinians or others is horrible and must be condemned. But the basic problem is the settlements and the lack of an accommodation between Israel and the Palestinians, and Israel's withdrawing from Palestinian land.
But that's like probably a joke, right? Because there is no peace process. And there hasn't been a peace process. There's been a blood process.
It's Jerusalem!
This fundraiser is for Shani's Jerusalem Reclamation Project, which raises about $1 million a year to help another organization which buys Arab property in East Jerusalem to make the city more Jewish.
I appreciate every single dollar for Jerusalem.
Shani's backers invoke God's name, in Hebrew, Hashem, to help them buy land.
When we ask Hashem Yerushalayim, it means that Hashem will send one Arab that will sell a building in the old city. And then we need the Jewish to come and buy this place.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Dove, the professional politician,
how you doing?
gives these prayers some political muscle. Our review of the available New York Board of Elections financial disclosure records from 1999 until October last year shows Heikind has given nearly $40,000 from his own campaign war chest to pro-settlement organizations, his second largest expense.
How can any Jew say that there is no spiritual relationship between a Jew and Hebron? Because if you say that, then let me say right now, Jews have no right to any of the land of Israel.
Well, I'm looking for a house.
These days, Shani and Dove Heikind are house hunting themselves in the occupied territories.
You can own a piece of the rock, as they say in America.
For the Heikinds, it's more than a real estate investment.
People who believe and are willing to sacrifice and willing to put themselves where their mouth is, that's amazing stuff.
And even though the U.S. government officially opposes expansion of the settlements, the Heikinds are recruiting others to join them.
I know you're not going to put this on, but those who call me a radical, aren't they the real radicals? Because they represent a much smaller segment than I do. I represent a hell of a lot of people.
When we come back, some might say this building became the most powerful arm of American foreign policy, more powerful than Foggy Bottom. How a powerful special interest group in Washington helps God's warriors in the West Bank. And later,
I've buried many friends who have been murdered by Arabs.
a West Bank settler tells us the proper response is revenge.
God's revenge being a sign of justice.
For decades, the U.S. has said Jewish settlements in the occupied territories are an obstacle to peace. So why not withhold some of America's generous foreign aid to pressure Israel? I asked former President Jimmy Carter. America gives Israel $3 billion a year, no questions asked, just about. Why doesn't it say, okay, no more $3 billion?
There's no way that a member of Congress would ever vote for that and hope to be reelected.
John Mearsheimer, a prominent political scientist at the University of Chicago, co-authored one of the most controversial essays of late, arguing pro-Israel advocates have too much influence on American policy.
The lobby goes to great lengths to make sure that U.S. policymakers privilege Israel over the Palestinians.
The pro-Israel lobby he's talking about is a loose coalition of PACs, professional lobbyists and grassroots activists.
Thanks, Michael. Always great. Thanks.
Yes.
Morris Amitay runs Washington PAC, which funds pro-Israel politicians. I spoke with him at his office in the same building where he once ran AIPAC. Some might say this building became the most powerful arm of American foreign policy, more powerful than Foggy Bottom, State Department.
Not really.
No?
It's powerful because you have the Governors Association here, the Attorney General's Association,
and AIPAC.
35 states, and you had a